Aloha and welcome to Goddess Unleashed. This is Diane Vick, and on today's episode, I'm excited to bring on a friend, a colleague, and actually an ex coach of mine, Kari Caldwell. And she is a goddess oracle, the founder of Soul School. And she is here on this special global healing episode to bring some inspiration on how to reduce stress, how to reprogram ourselves so that we're not stuck in that stress mode. And she's going to end off in a nice meditation. Her meditations are fabulous. So let me introduce Kari on here. Kari, how are
Hello,
you?
hello. I'm good. How are you doing? This is awesome. Thank you for having me. It's an honor and love connecting in this format. So beautiful.
I'm excited. And I really love that you have started this 77 days of meditation, which I have popped in periodically. Let them know a little bit about this little process that you're going through.
Absolutely. Well, I am in the midst of 77 days of meditation. It started back in October, just before the election. And it was really my way of needing something to hang on to, something consistent that, so much of this year has just felt like waves of just tough energy. And so I wanted some way to kind of weave the fabric together and create a bridge between where I was then and where we are going now, and where we are headed, I should say. And so the 77 days started in October, and they're going to run through January. And you can find them in the Running on Faith Facebook group. It's free. We just show up every morning at 8:30, and they are I focus on seven different goddesses, and a lot of people don't really know the goddess, and so it's really about, as we rotate through each of them every week, essentially, it's there to help you understand and learn what those different archetypes mean for you and how to call on them, and really ground and anchor ourselves into this new year that we are heading into, as well as the new, just the new this new reality that we're living in, new vibrational reality.
Absolutely. I would say that we are in a very, very different kind of holiday experience than
Hmm.
ever before. The shifts are much more drastic, I've noticed. Um, One of the things that I've been doing over the past few weeks is planning to actually start sharing videos to de-stress the holidays. So I think it's perfect that we're airing this next week because people are feeling a lot of stress. So let's jump into how can we reprogram ourselves with simple strategies to help us stay in that high vibration so that we don't get stuck in that emotional roller coaster during the holidays.
Absolutely. Well, just to give you a little bit of like foundation, right? Groundwork, to lay the groundwork for what I recommend. To me, our minds, we live in a masculine culture. We live in a push, push, go, go orientation. We all know this, right? And that's been the beauty that COVID in this year of 2020 brought in, is that we all came to a grinding halt. Not to say that that halt in and of itself didn't bring stress of its own accord, but that halt really like put the kibosh on that momentum, that hamster wheel that our culture had been caught up in. And so as it did, just kind of like everybody running full pace, and if someone trips, or like if you ever watch bike races and someone falls and like the whole peloton goes down, that's kind of what's been happening for us culturally as well. And so what coming out of that pushing and going mechanism does, um, has invited and opened up the space for us to learn how to connect in a way that is in feminine in its energy. And so I like to describe the difference between masculine and feminine, because a lot of times people think that we're talking about men or women or whatever, and it actually has nothing to do with sex. It's everything to do with, if you were to envision planting a seed into the earth, or into your pot or whatever, right? You would put it in, you would come up with the idea to do it, you'd have the vision of what you wanted to grow, whether it was a tomato or a flower or whatever. You would plant it, and then you would make sure that that seed had the right nutrients in the soil. You would water it, but then you'd walk away from it and you would just let it do its thing, and then you'd check back in maybe the next day or whatever your routine is. There'd be like a nice little bit of consistency to pull it all together. we would never, with that seed, once it came above the ground and sprouted, start to tell it to like grow more leaves here, and oh, you should like be this tall by this date, and I need to have you bloom by this date, and oh, the color of the flower better be exactly this, right? Yet when we think about what we do with our ideas, our dreams and everything, that's what we do. Like we set goals and we start like marching along, and we create these to-do lists, and we put all of this pressure on ourselves that throws our bodies into that masculine mindset, that masculine mode. That structure is masculine. Masculine is all about creating structure. It's action oriented. Whereas the feminine is that process of just walking away and allowing for whatever is meant to bloom and grow in our lives to be able to do that. And so when we're talking about stress and each of those pieces, really stress comes up because it happens where we're caught too much in telling our plant exactly how to grow, telling our bodies where to be, how to show up. And our bodies, of course, on the other side, they have their own vision, they have their own ideas, they have their own dream of what they're calling in and really what they're needing. And so that to me is like the essence of where we can like really start to listen to each of the different pieces, and get very centered and connected. And so that slowdown, I know, can be challenging for people as well. And that's where developing practices and routines for meditation and whatnot, tuning into podcasts like this, where we just tune into what, calling in what the body is needing and helping it have its time to become that magical plant. So yeah, any questions on that? I always dump a ton of energy and then I'm like, okay, what'd that make you think of? And then I'll get into the next pieces. But I don't like to go, I could vomit out on you for forever. So
I like that. I like how you explained it, because for me it's like the process of surrender. The feminine side is it's you letting go, which I have always had issues letting go since the moment we met.
yeah,
And this past year has really been about me surrendering and letting go and letting things happen. And yet, on the middle of Thanksgiving, things happened that threw me
yep,
off. And
yep,
it proceeded into impacting my body physically, where I actually had an injury occur to my lower back
yeah, mm,
because those thoughts that are in our mind impact our body in such an intense way.
yep,
So it's so powerful that I brought you on at this episode, because I know that I'm not the only person that's feeling these shifts, these differences
yep,
between what's in our mind and what's happening inside our body. And if we
yep,
can give people something simple that can help shift that in the moment and create an awareness that we need to tune into what's happening in our bodies and in our minds
yep,
to make that shift. And then
yep,
it begins to evolve and change other people around us, but we have to start with us.
yep, yep. I would, that's absolutely right. And I would say, and this is going to sound very, I don't know if the right word is massive. No, it's not even that. Like, I'm not going down that. It's, to me, when things like that happened, like happened for you over Thanksgiving, I always look at those as like, okay, here we go. Right? Like when things shift and we get called into our body, or the body responds to us by creating injury or any of those things, I always see it as like, oh my gosh, the up level is coming. Like this piece that I've been calling in. You know, if you're tuning into a podcast like this, you're here because you're looking to grow in some way. Our soul is looking to expand. But what happens to the snake that's shedding its skin, right? Like it has to shed the skin in order for it to grow. And so sometimes injury and the stress and those things that we're coming into show up in terms of trauma. They show up in terms of like pain or an incident where you just like get racked back and you feel like you're taking 100 steps backwards. Except what I've come to learn in my process and in the teachings that I work with is that when we do that for that second round or that third round or whatever, however that pain is showing up, it's creating the opportunity for us to go into it with awareness, with the ability to observe it, and to bring light into it, right? To bring understanding and compassion. And really, so our bodies are incredible, because what they do is they will take pain, they will take negative emotion, and it's out of a mechanism for survival, right? Because we have to match up with mom or dad and their emotions. You know, we, in order to survive as humans, we're the only creatures that can't care for ourselves. So we learn to mirror the environment around us, and a lot of times that can be a traumatic experience for like the majority of people. But it, because in that mirroring, adults aren't emotionally healthy necessarily. And so as children, we learn to take these emotions on, and it can be really painful, right? And so as a mechanism to protect ourselves, we essentially block it. We have what I like to call a trap door. It's in our, right around our throat chakra, and that sucker like closes off and allows us to control the volume of energy, of emotions that we're actually consciously aware of, which is why we have like what, 3% in our conscious mind and 97% down here in the subconscious. And so when we're working with that, as we are seeking to open our world and become spiritually evolved and answer that calling for more light to come into our bodies, we get to open this trap door up. And that trap door then will allow, hopefully in a slow path or pattern, some of that trauma and that pain to come up and through. And sometimes that happens just through meditation and being in practice. And other times it happens because we stumble into an incident with some family members or whatever else at Thanksgiving. And then boom, there you are. But again, it's that trap door that's opening. And as you're in process with that, the trauma with the body, like the physical pain and that sort of thing, can, yes, like you said, it's there because the beliefs are there, but you're also getting the opportunity to surrender, to be quiet, to sit with that pain, so that the light, like you didn't have the time in the past, whatever the trigger of that pain is, when it happened, you didn't have the time to sit with it, to probably be nurtured with it, to understand it, to comprehend it, to bring to it what it's needing now. And so that's why the body will have those physical responses sometimes also, so that we get really pulled into it, to give it the adequate amount of time, of quiet time, of allowing that plant, you know, whatever needs to be cleared out to clear out, and that light to come in, so that we can embody more of those pieces of our soul that we're trying to grow into. So again, another big dump.
It absolutely is. It was a message for me to slow down. Like it was time for me to slow down and really tune in and understand what was happening. Why was this particular confrontation? Why did it impact me in such a way? What am I fearful for? What do I need to prepare for? It was like a time, okay, now you got to sit back. You need to nurture your body, you need to heal yourself and figure out what was the root of where it came from, and then work on both the physical and the
Yep,
emotional root of the
yep,
symptoms, so you can evolve through it, and then obviously eventually teach people about what was happening. But right now we're still just working through it.
yep,
So
yep. You don't want to like mess with it while it's like setting up and working its magic. Absolutely. Beautiful.
exactly. So before we close off this side, this part of the episode, I definitely want to make sure we give some strategies. So let's do some strategies in the last 11 minutes of this part.
Perfect. Absolutely. So in terms of processing stress, I like to, I have a couple different mechanisms. One of the main, um, other than, so I can talk to you about meditation, but we'll kind of save that, because I feel like not everyone connects with meditation, and that's not always a go-to, especially when we're in stress, right? Because our bodies are kind of hyped up and not ready to just go there. And so the biggest theme, I would say, especially as we head into the holidays with family and triggers, and you know, people have a lot of financial stuff going on, and just different relationship stuff. Like no matter how this year has hit you, everyone is getting hit this year with big stuff. Like there's been such big vibrational shifts and new energy that's getting called in. And so however we used to process in the past our traumas and our stress and everything else, it's very different now because our foundation, like our planet's foundation of energy, is very different. So that's why there's such a huge, why so much is happening, and why people are having a lot of stuff happening in terms of, relationship and finances and just all of the things, never mind like the actual things that are going on in our culture and society and at home with kids being home and stuff. So to process stress, I always say like the biggest and best thing we can do is to stop. Whatever we're doing in that moment, just stop and give ourselves a moment to pause. And while that sounds like the most obvious thing, it's actually one of the hardest things we do, because our bodies are conditioned to be on that hamster wheel, to solve the problem, to like deep dive, to like, I just got to figure this out, right? Like our mind will go into the, I gotta figure it out, and I just need to talk to the person. I just need to bring it back into balance. I just need to do this or that or whatever. And like, no, just stop. In reality, especially as it relates to other people, we have different styles of processing stress. We have different, you've probably heard of the love language, the different love languages and everything else. And so what happens when we feel discord in the body is the body is essentially saying to you, it's recognizing that it's not fitting in, like something isn't lining up, a puzzle piece essentially isn't coming together, which is what triggers the stress. And so when we stop, we're essentially giving the body a moment to say, to actually listen to the mind. Am I safe? Right? Am I okay? Is the emotions I'm experiencing right now, are they mine? Or am I feeling, my neighbor, my friend, my coworker, all of these different pieces? Because I guarantee you, 99 times out of 100, it's something that we're feeling instead of something that's actually our own. And so when we just create the moment of stop, and that can look like going into the bathroom and closing the door and locking it and like taking a few minutes to breathe. It can look like a lot of different things. It can look like a walk outside. My mechanism used to be to go into my closet and shut out the world, and my kids would be like, totally wreaking havoc downstairs, and I would just like take that moment to be like, okay, I can get back downstairs before they burn the house down. So that stop is huge. And to just, as we've been saying, surrendering in that moment and just allowing the body to kind of have its moment to speak. Our minds are constantly talking. I'm sorry, our body is constantly talking. Our mind usually isn't listening. So when we create that stop moment, that allows for that calibration to happen. And a lot of times it's not always good, or it doesn't always feel good, but that's okay because it's better than whatever the other pieces are. So that's like my number one go to anything. And sometimes like when we're heated or in an argument, it can be really challenging because I'm one of those people, when I get triggered or in an argument, I'm like, blah, like we just got to have this out and like get the energy out and be done with it. So having to take a walk out, usually I have to go outside to allow the energy to come down and step into that space. Silence is a second tool that I use. It's pretty powerful because oftentimes to process stress, we'll pick up the phone, we'll call whoever, we'll just like vomit it out. But there's only so much of that you can do. I'm not saying that's not effective also, but there's so much of that you can do. And so stepping into silence and just being present to like, how am I responding to these stressors in my life right now? Instead of trying to jump into action, I'm always into like what my pattern is, trying to identify what those patterns are. And so giving ourselves permission to not speak into something. Maybe it's only for 5 minutes, maybe it's for 5 hours, but to just allow our voice to get really pure in what the feelings are that are there. And then being able to articulate those feelings can be really powerful as well. Any thoughts on any of those? Anything that it's triggering before I jump back in?
I like that you mentioned to take a pause, because that's something that'll come up for me a lot is when there's an emotion, when I feel a shift of energy, is I tell myself to stop, take a deep breath, hold your breath briefly, and then I ask myself, what do I need to do? Because each emotion has its own way of getting out of it. So like I've learned, if I'm in sadness, it means I need to cry. So I need to do an activity that will help me connect with those emotions. If it's anger, I need to get it out physically. So I usually go boxing. But my body's very good about telling my mind what I need to know. So if you slow down, you pause, you take a deep breath, and you ask yourself and honor that gut feeling, whatever comes to your mind, even if it sounds ridiculous. Maybe it sounds like jumping jacks outside right now. Why not try it? Maybe it'll help shift the way you feel.
Absolutely, it will. And that actually leads to my next piece of advice for processing stress, and that is use your body. Our bodies are designed to process stress. Like that is what they are here for. That is why we have them, to be that vehicle to move energy through us. So often we think about energy moving in terms of emotions and everything else, but like the actual way our bodies are constructed is through movement and motion and everything else. And so like I said a minute ago, we could drop in and talk about meditation as being the ultimate way to process stress. And it is, but like I said, when we're triggered, what happens, and when we're like really in a state of stress, there's a couple things that are mechanically breaking down that are happening. And that is that when we feel stress, the mind isn't connecting to the body, right? There's a disconnection. And even low level anxiety, if like you're just feeling anxious, it's because like there's not a full connection. So the body is sending a signal, which is triggering the mind to be like, oh shit, like we got to work on this. What can we do? La, 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 la. And so it kind of collapses everything. And we have this mind, heart, gut connection. And we have over 30 ways of redundancy that the mind is connecting to the heart, which is connecting to the gut. And so when our traditional or the ways we're programmed to do it aren't working, that's when we fall into stress, right? Because that trap doors come down and it said, I'm done. I don't want to feel what the body is kicking up to me right now. And I like just don't want to have to deal with this. So that's like the science, but if you will, it's not even science, but that's like what's happening in the body. So when we open ourselves up to meditation, we're saying, I want to go in and listen exclusively to the body, which is like just intense, right? Sometimes, especially when that stress is coming through. So we can still listen to the body. We can still experience and process that energy through and create a connection that is then feels better for the mind to work with through exercise. So going for the walk, getting your heart rate up, doing some yoga, each of those things are important to help maintain that flow between each of the different centers. Oftentimes people say like, well, I don't meditate, I don't do this, I really struggle with it. And I can tell you, if a kid can meditate by running circles around their parents' legs, which we often do, or we'll see kids doing, that's meditation, right? Because it's that exercise that's allowing that child to find calm, even though it's driving mom insane because parents are just like, sit down, right? So if it can be as basic and as simple as that for a child to hook their systems back up through running in circles around mom and dad, then it can be equally as simple for us to go out and process with it. So using the body, like get out, move it. I don't care if you haven't been out in years, like make it happen. And that will help flush out a lot of those emotions that are in there, because we don't need stories. Our emotions don't need stories. It's our mind that tells the story. So the body can do it without the story.
Absolutely. And I'd say the body's really good about giving us a message when we need to start moving, when we need to start going. So if your body's telling you that you need to go out and do exercise and walk, it's a great opportunity for you to actually pump in your earbuds and listen to a meditation. Maybe you can't relax because you're too stressed out, but you can absolutely get that energy out and listen to something while you relax and walk and let go of the stress that way.
Yep,
so we're getting ready to
absolutely.
wrap up. Don't miss out the second half. We're definitely going to go into the meditation in a few moments. This is Diane Vic. Aloha. Aloha and welcome back. This is Diane Vick, Goddess Unleashed. And on today's episode, I'm interviewing Kari Caldwell, one of my former coaches. And before we left off, we were talking about how we can de-stress, how we can use meditation, use exercise to help us shift the way we feel, to really tune into our bodies and get that message when we're feeling stressed out, so it doesn't continue to build up within our bodies and make us feel overwhelmed in the holidays. I want to bring in Kari again and ask her some questions about the way we met. So we actually met about 3 years ago, and then she later on became my coach. And she's very intuitive. So she came up with all these insightful things on the moment that we met. And then progressively we worked together, and she recognized things that I wasn't ready to hear at that moment. And sometimes it's hard to listen to that when it's coming at you, because it's reality setting in. But I think it's exciting to bring you on this show and share your insights as to where you saw me before and how far I've come on this journey, and incite people on what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've always loved our times when we've been able to weave together and connect. And your story has always inspired me. So much courage and compassion, and your continual dedication to evolving your body and being present to your body, and the magic that can come through that. My job is, and the space that I operate in, is about bringing people into their own inner feminine, if you will. So much of who, like I said in the beginning, like, we're programmed in the masculine, and how can we allow for the seeds and the creation of our ideas to blossom and grow through our bodies, right? We can never manifest, we can never create without our bodies being that fertile soil. And so it's been a lot of fun connecting with you over the years, and just seeing how you're implementing that and applying it, and the themes you work on and everything are so needed, because so many of us, especially as women, like, we're so programmed to think about our bodies and our relationship to our sexuality and all of those pieces in such a structured way, right? And really what I've seen you bring to the table, and we do it in different ways, but it's about how do we unwind all of those things we've learned and filtered, to like allow ourselves, like, that true inner voice, that piece of us inside that is just seeking and yearning to come out to the forefront, be born. And then how do we honor that and hold space for it, so that some of those yo-yos and the stress that we experience don't continue to show up. So the way that's pretty much what led me into my work was, I was sick of the patterns I was in. I was having health problems similarly, and to you, and it wasn't working. And so one thing led to the next, led to the next. And I was a compensation analyst, and then I got into construction with my husband. Like, my trajectory was not like, okay, I've always been an intuitive, I've always been able to understand and read bigger energies. That was not it. And so I always believed, if I can do this, like, anyone can. And so that's really my mission, is to help people identify those pieces for themselves, and really good at manifesting. So my current, I'm doing the goddess meditations right now for anyone to connect with, but I also do workshops. They're called Goddess and Goals workshops, and it's learning the goddesses, like, just stories of the feminine, and learning those stories of the feminine, and then how we can apply them in our own lives to go about achieving the goals that we're setting, so that we're not doing that thing to the plant where we're telling it how to grow, but we're actually feeling comfortable and safe and confident in what it is we're creating, and because that's the issue. If we fall out of the masculine pattern, like, it's scary, right? I know you and I've had many conversations about that, about how we can take the next steps, and not and put ourselves out there in ways that are exposed and vulnerable, yet they're our path, and they're where we're meant to be going. So that's my goal always, is to bring people into that and have them feel good about it.
I agree. And I love that there's a quote that you sent me and it just flew away from me. So I literally can't read it. But it talks about the darkness. And I remember when we worked together that we did a session face to face, that there was a lot of darkness on my feminine side. I was stuck in the masculine, which is the side of my body that was numb for 20 years. It was that chronic pain. And in order to shift that and get there, the balance, one of the things that you recognize is that I had to release all this darkness that wasn't really my emotions. It was past generations. It was
Yeah,
things that I was holding on to. Can you
yeah,
explain a little bit about that insight?
yeah, absolutely. So we, the quote I believe was, "We have to go in. We get to go into the darkness to see the light." And the you know, I'm like a mechanic, and so to me, we view darkness as um, that piece of your body that you weren't connecting with was because your mind didn't know, it didn't have neurocircuitry, right, to understand what those energies were. And so when we go into that and we're like, oh, well, no, I'm going to tell my mind to actually start to look at some of what's over here in my body. We all can read our energy. Every time you close your eyes and you imagine something like pink pig, like you're going to see it. We read energy. That's as humans, like that's one of our greatest skill sets, and yet we don't pay attention to it. We like ignore our intuition. We ignore what our imagination is kicking up. And all of these, the darkness is simply where denser energies are living, where we haven't yet connected to pieces of who and what we are. And so when we get to when we start paying attention and telling our mind, hey, because it's running the show up here, and we say, hey, like there's this whole part of my body that I don't know yet, right, that I don't understand. What is it? I'm curious, like, what could this be? And so that's really the space that I took you into, is how can we play over here? How can we start to bring some of that vibration online? Because that vibration on that feminine side is an energy of receiving. It is an energy of surrender. So often we think that, you should just be able to surrender and receive. But if it's like anything else, if you don't have the muscles to do it, right? If you don't even know what it is, if the vibration is, if your body has spent a lifetime telling your body to ignore that, then you got to teach it, just like learning how to walk. You got to teach it how to bring that online and help the mind feel comfortable with it. And clearly, you've been like rocking it with all of those pieces, slowly piecing it all together. So,
It's definitely been a process over the past 2 years. I wouldn't have thought that. Okay, so when we did a meditation, we need to let these people know what's coming up here. One of the meditations that we did together, you actually saw yoni eggs. So you actually
yep,
saw, I think it was a jasper, so a green.
yep,
I
that
remember
sounds,
it being
I'm
green,
seeing that. Yep,
and I didn't see it until you started to describe it. And on this journey, as I've been working through the darkness and getting towards being able to teach people how to use these eggs to help heal the body, because each one has its own properties. So this is an Eros egg. This one's a different color egg, and this one's uh, black obsidian. So each one has
yep,
its purpose. I
yep,
use them very, very deeply in my healing process as I work through my trauma and as I face my fears,
yep,
to be able to teach this. It has given me the strength to actually confront those things that I was avoiding. So I came
yep,
out in the book that you know about, the Crappy to Happy series book, and I actually tell my parents about the abuse that I had never shared before. And it all happened simultaneously as these eggs start to come out in what I'm
right,
getting ready to teach.
yep,
But it was all kind of interwoven together, getting the
yeah,
light to come back in through the darkness.
yep. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a process, right? Like it's a spiral. Life happens. We think, again, this is like the feminine and the goddess and the goals. Like we think it's a linear trajectory, point A to point B, and it's not. It's like this spiraling, and there's cycles in it. And that's the beauty of the egg, is that it embodies the cycle, right? Like it embodies that creation process. And you know, the feminine is all about, like, it's all about womb energy, whether it's our womb or the womb of the earth, the vessel of the earth. It's all the same core. At the core, it's all the same. And so I think it's so cool how you go straight to the womb. You work straight with that healing space. And as women, one of the things we don't realize is that, you know, we house, whether you've used your womb or not, or whatever your relationships are to your body and your sexuality and everything else, like we actually within us house creation force. Like we house that container, it lives within us. Men don't have that. They externalize their spirituality. Our spirituality, like it's an external source for them to experience it. Our spirituality, even at the experience of the masculine, all occurs through us. And so when we can begin to open that, and in the work you do, it's all about that, like just bringing attention to it, saying, hey, you're there. Like it's such a direct link, it's such a direct plug in to like when we're needing inspiration, to when we're needing creation, without it even having to bring on like all of the things that we think about, you know, when we're connecting with our abdomen otherwise. So it's where the magic is. We draw energy any given point in time. Just to give you an idea, like how much magic is there. There are over 6 trillion bits of information per millisecond coming into our abdomen. Like it's beyond. So when you're working with that trauma and you're thinking there's no possible way I can get through this, there's how you can't see the end of the path, like we just have to remember that right inside of us is more inspiration and in like beyond anything that our brains can possibly conceive. And so the more we build that relationship up with that space in our body, like the more opportunities present themselves, the more the random person shows up, the more that perfect moment to like say what you've been struggling to say for years presents itself, you know. And it just comes from literally recognizing that that much creation force is living inside us, and we just don't know how to, like, we just get to practice getting better at tuning into it and building it and building the relationship with it. So it's beautiful. It's beautiful work.
It makes me even more excited that I'm getting ready to teach orgasmic meditation after my birthday. So my birthday is December 21st. We talked about there's this big energy shift that's going to happen that day. And for some reason, I planned my class to start on the 22nd, where I'm going to be incorporating the eggs and teaching women or couples how can they reduce the inflammation, the stress that's happening in the body, get that reconnection to feel those deep meditations, healing meditations in the body. So thank you for that insight.
Yeah.
We have about 11 minutes left, and I don't want to miss out on
Okay.
your beautiful meditation. So let's go ahead
All
and
right.
jump into that.
Awesome. All right. So if everybody could just take a few moments, and we're going to give the mind, we've been already falling into the field, but we're going to give the mind a few more nuggets to work with. So taking a breath and just listening to the sound of your breath, feeling the sound of your breath in your body, noticing as we shift our focus to our body by listening to the breath, how the mind begins to shift. And we're going to do one of my core basic meditations. This is, it's what I call the light link. And it's all about, you know, so often when we meet people and we're like, ooh, that was a bad vibration, or we just want to like shake something off or cleanse it out. You know, this is a perfect meditation to connect with it, because you can literally do it at any time in your car while you're driving. Like you don't need to drop all the way in like we're going to right now. But this light link is very basic. We're going to bring middle fingers to thumb and hold that mudra. And take a breath. And again, just beginning to allow your spine to kind of undulate back and forth, wiggling the hips so that you feel your seating bones beneath you. Doesn't have to be anything major. It can be just so ever so slight. And we're going to allow for our minds to begin to tune in to the golden light above us. And so what that looks like for those of you that are new to my meditations is it looks like just imagining yourself being in a dark room and then opening your front door and stepping out into the sun. What would that look like in your mind's eye? Does your light, are your eyes needing to adjust? Is it so bright? Can you feel the warmth radiating down on your body, on the top of your head, on your shoulders? Just give your body a moment to connect to this vibration. Vibrations are like the internet. Our mind is constantly scanning, like Google up there. We're constantly scanning for different energies. And anytime we get into an off energy, we simply can re-anchor by searching up and dialing in and telling our mind to call on this beautiful golden light. It is symbolic, the color gold and this vibration is symbolic of infinite possibilities, of your angels, of your guides, of your higher purpose. And so when we intentionally call it in and tell our mind, beep, 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 shift, anchor in, we're telling it to stop listening to the noise of the outside world and to listen to this. So take a nice deep inhale here. And we're going to begin to imagine that golden light working its way as though we're stepping out powerfully into the sun now and feeling it shining on our middle body, our hips, our feet, as we bring our attention to our feet. And I'm going to invite you to imagine yourself standing barefoot, maybe in the sand at the beach, maybe in the grass. And imagine or do it wiggling your toes into the earth, feeling the earth beneath your feet, feeling its solidness, reflecting on gravity, the gravity of our planet, holding you, pulling you down towards it like a hug, drawing you in. So just allow that pull to draw your attention down and into the center of the earth. Taking a breath. And for some of you that are more visual, oftentimes I'll imagine being in a pool at night and we can see a light shining up from the bottom. And so feeling yourself swimming down towards that light, allowing yourself to become completely immersed in it until you suddenly recognize that you've arrived at the center of the earth. And there's a beautiful white crystal quartz here that's almost luminescent and rainbow-like, radiating out. This is where our past, our present, and our future, all of our memories from this lifetime and past, all of our forgiveness, all of our hopes and dreams is all stored in this beautiful heart of the earth. So give yourself a moment to pass off any hope, any intentions, anything that is no longer serving you, like the warm embrace of a mother who forgives all, who knows all, and is here to guide you. And now bringing your attention from the center of the earth up through your feet, imagining the feeling of the firm earth, the planet beneath your feet, the tug of the ocean as the waves crash in and go out, and feeling its pull around your ankles as you may bring your hands to your heart. And take a nice deep inhale. Feeling yourself connecting both heaven, that golden light, and earth, that crystal quartz energy. Breathing it in, the sweetness of the golden light like honey. The earth, drinking it in like milk. Allowing for your body to align and connect with your true center, your true core. This is your purpose, to be this conduit, this connection of both of these vibrations. And because this is Goddess or Global Healing and the Goddess podcast, and I love connecting with Goddess energy, the feminine, and the archetypes of the feminine, we're going to call in the Goddess Sophia. Goddess Sophia, who is all about you being enough, you being loved, you being in your core, you becoming each and every day this channel, this intuitive, spiritual, magical being that you are. And all the ways in which these two energies and vibrations flow through you. So just telling the vibration to up a little bit, to turn the volume up. You don't have to necessarily have anything other than your mind being present to the moment to experience that. I often envision Sophia like the dawn, the sun coming into the darkness and those first rays of light shining on her faces as she makes her magical sweep over the planet, sprinkling down with her golden kisses of sunlight all that is here, that is infinite possibilities. It is a magical time of year that we are in. It is a time when forgiveness, compassion, love, joy, this inner light are at the forefront. And Sophia is the feminine version, the feminine expression of that energy. Christ consciousness in feminine form. So I invite you now to just say a prayer, a wish, a dream, a hope that you want to experience, that you want to call in this day, in this moment of time. Taking a breath and allowing yourself to work your way back into the room.
That was beautiful. Beautiful. I swear my eyes got watery.
Nice.
It was nice. So we're getting ready to wrap up. We have about a minute left. I want to make sure that that women or anyone that wants to join in and follow you, to know where to reach you, and also about your Facebook group again, just to remind them how to access that.
Yeah, thank you. So the Facebook group is Running on Faith, the Running on Faith initiative, and you can find me there. But the best place to connect with me is at goddessandgoals.com. That is where I am throwing down with all of the cool manifesting magic. It's the new year, and I am doing readings right now, goddess readings. You get your goddess profile and report, and it's your specific archetypes of the feminine, essentially, to help you anchor in, so that, and it teaches you about your cycles and how, we all know vision work and how to do goal setting for the new year and lay out our plans. These readings are really designed to teach you how to do it in a feminine capacity. So it teaches you your core cycles and how to to be connected with that. So Goddess and Goals is where like the fun magic is happening right now, and it's a good place to connect over this goal setting time and really lay an awesome energetic foundation for this year to come. Move out of 2020 and powerfully into 2021, absorbing all of these feminine manifesting vibrations. So yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for being on this show, for being a close friend of mine. And I can't wait to go back into that group and listen to the meditations today, starting today, because I'm going to make that goal for myself.
Call it in.
Yeah. Definitely. I hope everyone was just inspired, that you found some insights into ways to tackle stress during the holidays. And I hope this brought some nurturing support during my global healing series. This is Diane Vick, Goddess Unleashed. Aloha.
Beautiful.